Again, welcome this morning to Commercial Forum. I'm Amy Winsky. I'm your Commercial Forum Chair for 2021. I own AmeriCapital and I've been financing commercial property for almost 35 years. I'm also your 2021 Commercial Council Chair, and my partner in crime is Sabrina Walters, who co-chairs the Commercial Council with me. Good morning, Sabrina.
Morning.
And Peggy Neely is here, and she is our liaison for the Commercial Forum. So good morning.
Good morning.
I'd also like to thank Laura Kovacs, Suzanne Brown, Rebecca Grossman, and Louis McCall for all being here from SAAR. Thank you so much for your support of Commercial Forum.
Thank you.
Before we get started, also, I want to thank Helena Donahoe of American Title for being a continued sponsor of the Commercial Forum. Helena, we really appreciate your support again, and look forward to another successful year of Commercial Forum with you.
Thank you. We are grateful to be here and wonderful to participate and happy to see everyone's smiling faces. And even if it's with Zoom, we're all here, so it's just good to see everyone. Thank you.
It's also important, I think, to point out that at this time when when we're meeting over Zoom, sponsorships are definitely falling off in all different organizations that I'm a part of. And so we really appreciate the fact that you step up and you sponsor Commercial Forum year after year.
Thank you. Thank you. We're grateful to be here, and thanks, Amy.
Suzanne, do we have any property promotions today?
We do. First up, we have Barry Harvey. Barry, did you want to talk about your property?
Sure. I have a space right over by the ice den. The highlights for it are the parking. It has a sea of parking. So I have on the brochure that it's 7,000 square or 7 per thousand, but there really is not a limit. So if you have anyone with a big parking need, that's the space. It's 3219. It's just been repainted. The tenant moved out, I think Monday. So it is vacant and ready to show. I will have it on lockbox, probably a mechanical lockbox starting, I'm assuming Monday if I get the key this week.
Great, perfect. Any questions? Next up, we have our wonderful building. Rebecca, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I apologize. I just minimized the screen and I can't get it back up, but so I'm assuming it's on the screen. There it is. Okay.
Yep.
Good morning, everyone. Yes, we still have a vacancy here in our office building. It is about 3,100 square feet. It's a beautiful space right above the entrance. So it's right up the stairs there. And that's because Axia vacated and moved into our middle suite. So they needed more space, and that has provided that vacancy. So if you're interested, please give us a call. We'd be happy to discuss and give you a tour of the building.
Perfect. That concludes the tasks that we had sent into us. Does anybody on the call have any wants or needs that they would like to tout? I'm not hearing anyone unmute themselves, Amy, so it looks like we can proceed.
Okay, wonderful. Before I introduce our speaker, I wanted to remind you that if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll handle them at the end during the Q&A portion. I'll introduce you now to Tom Witt, for those of you who might not know him. Tom has held executive positions in the technology sector, developing new products for both the commercial and the military markets. Today, however, we're lucky enough to have Tom, who is going to update us on what's been happening in the healthcare sector during this past crazy year and what we can expect for 2021. So go ahead, Tom, take it away.
Thank you, Amy. Hi, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to be labeled as an expert. I'm definitely not an expert in this, but I have learned a few things, through my travels here. I'm here because of Amy. Amy means a lot to me. She's helped me out a lot through life. And thinking back, Amy, we met through a healthcare umbrella, if you will. Amy used to promote and run a volleyball tournament at Scottsdale Ranch called Spike Out Cancer.
Mhm.
And it was a wonderful tournament for 10 or 11 years. Her and her family ran that tournament, really had a good heart and really set the stage for what it means to be healthy and to try and bring awareness to those that need some help. So I didn't know that, but years later, I was going to be in a position where my mom needed some help. My dad needed some help before that, but I really was too young and wasn't ready for it. But when my mom needed some help, I was ready to answer the call. And it was a lot of, learning from people like Amy, that put these events together so that we could pause from our busy day and trying to make a buck and realize, hey, the healthcare sector is something that's important. And if you do it right, you can make a dollar in it. So, what I'm going to try to do is just give you some of my experience. I like to speak from statistics, from data, from trends. So we'll dive into that a little bit before we try to tease out some of the conclusions on how the pandemic has affected the healthcare sector of our commercial real estate market specifically, and then maybe even a little deeper dive into some of my favorite topics in Scottsdale here, which is home care and how that has been dynamic over the last couple of years, but definitely the last year. So anyway, with that premise, and please guys, if you have any questions, like Amy said, put them in the chat box. I do want to start, and set the stage. There's no reason why we can't have a little fun with this. So there's a trivia question, and in the way of healthcare, the goal is, by the way, to stay out of healthcare as long as you can. Stay out of the hospital. Don't need healthcare. So one of the things I like to do is to avoid needing to go to the doctor. And so here's the trivia, and write your answer in the chat box if you want to profit it. But what is statistically speaking, again, from the facts or from the data, what is the number one thing that we all do every day? We'll all do it today. The number one most dangerous, deadly thing that we do today, it's not eating a bag of cheesy poos, or corn chips, but that's not far behind. So let's say we stay away from the corn syrup, but what is the number one thing we all do in our job as realtors, as agents of trying to move some commercial transactions? So if you've got an idea on what that is, put it in the box, and we'll talk about it at the end of in the Q&A session. So with that said, let's move on to a slide. Suzanne, let's if you could.
Want me to share your screen?
No, just drive it yourself. I haven't figured
All right.
it out yet. So
You seen it?
yeah, that one. So let's go to the next slide. And so Holly House is that's one of the reasons why I think I hit the radar as somebody that knows something about home care. I just built a house called we call it Holly House. It's a sober living home. We bought a single family residence. I found it for an investor doctor in Fresno, California. He is a neurologist. We've become good friends, and he every week he's a frontline emergency room guy that talks with parents and says, "Hey, your kid's brain dead. The pressure in their brain is so high that they're not coming back. You want to pull the plug." So, I mean, literally 2, 3, 4 times a week because of the because of the opioid epidemic that we have out there. For everybody that presents to the hospitals, to our medical system for big pharma drugs, big opioid derivatives, fentanyl, carfentanil, so on and so forth. There's for every illegal drug, there's 5 legal drugs. There's 5 big pharma that present. So we really have an epidemic that's killing our young kids right now. And so Dr. Stoop, Dr. Glasser, and I decided, let's go together and see if we can build a house, a sober living house here in Scottsdale, where we both grew up, to kind of help as many as we possibly can. So we went and found a house on Hawley Street here in near McDowell and Hayden Road. We got it zoned for 10 adults living there that are not related, 1 manager, 9 of them will be residents. And we we built that, got it certified, got it registered, got the fire sprinkler system in there, and everything down to the spoons. And then we were approached by a company in the air park to say, hey, we need a house. We need a sober living house for females. Can we rent this from you? So we've quickly gone from being an owner operator to being a landlord, and watching a professional operator go about it. So this is their third house in Scottsdale. It's their fifth house total. So they're on an expansion, and they've chosen Scottsdale because who doesn't want to get sober in Scottsdale? So we'll talk about that segment of the market, which is primarily for the younger set, that are trying to find wellness. And there's also the bigger set, which is more of the big economic tectonic mover and driver, which is the healthcare for the elderly, specifically for the baby boom population. You may or may not know that I took care of my mom for 4 years. Wasn't planning on it, but I'll do anything for my mother. She was a great mom, and so in 2010 she started to get sick, and so I don't know a lot, but I know a lot about nephrology. I know a lot about dialysis. And, I had to become an expert as her patient advocate there. She taught me a lot on the way out about healthcare. And so I'm going to try and pass that along to you. What to do if you're trying to make a buck in this, what not to do, because it's noble, but it doesn't make any money. And then if you have customers or clients that are interested in investing in healthcare, both small healthcare, which would be converting a house like I did with Stu at Holly House, or what's going on in big healthcare, what's going on in the big money. So the first thing I want to point your attention to, you guys all drive around the 101, and I like looking for the cranes. The cranes are a really good acid test, and you can see them from a mile away. And they show where the big money's going, where the institutional money's going. And then the next time you drive around the 101 curve there by Mayo Boulevard, look south and you'll see that there's 4 cranes right around Mayo Hospital right now. So that is a good indicator of what's going on with big healthcare. It continues to be a huge economic movement. Susan, let's go to the next slide if you would, please. So that is a tectonic economic driver of our economy, and it's in the highest demand it ever has been. Because of the baby boom population now, we still have 10,000 people turning 65 piling into that room, that elder care room. They're voraciously soaking up all of the medical assets that are put on the street. So it's really hard to lose money. You got to work really hard to lose money in healthcare right now, but you can do it. And then we have this generation that's behind me, that's the younger generation, the echo baby boom, that seems to be really struggling. We've never had this many sick kids. We've never had this many kids that are desperately, trying to save themselves from this extremely dense, powerful molecule that just seems to be awash in the streets right now. Back when I was a kid and going to issue, it was Budweiser and Jack Daniels, maybe somebody was smoking weed, but that stuff generally, you got to work really hard for that to kill you. But the fentanyl, that stuff is so powerful. You can shut your heart rate down. You can shut your respiration down, thinking that you're taking, something that's less dense, and it's not regulated. So it's really easy to mix up fentanyl, carfentanil with just, garden variety heroin. So all that stuff's out there. And I'm not going to get into that, but that if you want to, we can talk about that. It is the driver that is requiring so many of these new group homes. So a big number is 29,000. So we have 29,000 homes in the United States right now. It's up from 19,000 homes about 10 years ago. And this is for all the major segments, for elder care, in-home elder care, special needs kids and adults, and then the third category, which is sober living. And you can see it's hard to earn a buck in that. It's heavy. The EBITDA is 17%. Why is that? You got a lot of skilled labor. You have a lot of daycare labor. You have tons of regulations to go through in order to change a house over into a sober living home. And so it's a tough buck to make, but there are companies out there that are doing that. The number will probably go to 39,000. Will it go at the same linear rate of 10,000 over 10 years? Probably a little more than that, I would suggest, because again of the big driver, which is the baby boom retirement. The biggest number, though, of the 330 million people in the United States, 31 million homes are taking care of their own. So in the US, there's 31 million that kind of did what I did. I turned my mother's home in North Scottsdale up there by Frank Lloyd Wright and Via Linda into an elder care home. And I hired 8 people, 5 of which were her lifelong friends. They jumped out of their shoes to help me with my mom. We eventually had about 180 hours a week worth of labor to handle the 168 hours because of the overlap. I had to have, 2 or 3 hours of overlap in order to take care of my mom, have 2 people there at the same time to clean her and make sure everything was great. So that's a lot of work. And so I learned a lot through that process of hiring all those people and getting her up and taking her to dialysis in the morning. It's not for everyone, but if you have a chance to do that, don't miss it. It's changed me profoundly into a better person, and really have that last stake in the ground to drive myself into just becoming a better human being to be able to show up for that. So anyway, I didn't make any money there, but I did learn how to really save and weigh the pros and cons of what you want to do and how you want to invest. If you are going to build a home-based elder care center, or as I'm doing now, a sober living house, or if you have a client that wants to think about investing in something like that. So let's pull away from the smaller, small healthcare, which is, the home stuff, to the bigger healthcare. And there's this thing that's happening because of COVID. The pandemic has really accelerated the telehealth. I was on a call yesterday. One of the things that occurred while taking care of my mom is 3 of my friends approached me and asked me to be their power of attorney, their medical power of attorney, just because of how I took care of my mom. I wasn't planning on it. I was happy to help these guys. They're older guys, and they said, I don't have any kids that are going to show up, or I don't have any kids at all. So will you be my quarterback if I start drooling and need a diaper? And I said, yeah, I'm there. I'll be happy to do it. Be honored to do it. So yesterday I was on a phone call with one of my friends with a GI guy, and this was a Zoom call, and it was 20 minutes. And he said, yeah, we're going to schedule you for surgery in 2 weeks. And so it's not going to supplant, it's going to supplement. So the telehealth is going to solve the parking issue that we have. If you guys recall the Congressman Schweiker's talk at the 2020 Outlook, he spoke about the dynamic changes of throwing more technology at the healthcare problem and less parking spots, less office, medical office space, so that we can try to do some of these diagnoses through technology, as opposed to having to drive your car, park it, sit in the waiting room for 20 minutes, see the doctor for 5, and then leave. So that telehealth call that I was on yesterday, it was paid by Cigna. That doctor was paid for an office visit, even though it was over a Zoom call. So more of that is going to occur, and the pandemic this last year has accelerated that. It's also accelerated the segmentation, if you will, of what is specific and the money that is going into elder care, and also the money that is going in to take care of the millennials, this next generation that is peaking at about 30 years old right now. And they're fine with not owning a home. They're fine with living in a smaller space. They're fine with living with other people. So I think there's a buck to be made in the sober house where you've got 8 or 9. You can put the density in there. And we'll speak with how the municipalities, the city and the state and the county are dealing with all of that. So, the neighborhood doesn't go to hell, and because there's 17 sober living houses on one block. Anyway, again, back to the big money, the medical REITs are experiencing a big drop, more than the general return that the REITs are getting, across the board. So the problem here is vacancies. There's two elder care facilities that I keep an eye on. One is right around the corner here in South Scottsdale called MBK, and the other one is called Lifestream. That's up on it's on 51 and 101. They have a big village up there at Lifestream. They have 3 homes that have 10 beds each in a big middle room. They just shut down their 3rd of the 3 homes. They have none. They're 0 for 30 right now. They have no elder care in any of those beds. So they've mothballed all 3 of these big, huge, multi-million-dollar buildings. MBK has about 300 beds there. It used to be where the Smitty's used to be on Granite Reef and McDowell. So they're an interesting study, and there's something to learn there. They are about 85% full right now. They were at 95% a year ago, so to speak, pre-pandemic. And the reason why they've dropped off is interesting. It's because people are afraid to put their mom and their dad in these places because they think they're going to catch COVID in there. Or if somebody has a hospital visit and then they got to go do extended rehab at like Southwest Care, and then they have to go into elder care, a long-term situation, the family doesn't want to put them in there because they think, or MBK doesn't want to receive them because they've been in a hospital, they've been in a long, rehab center, and there's a lot of exposure there, and so they don't want to bring that into the house. So there's this real paranoia of bringing new people in to backfill the beds, that become vacant. So it is trending up. It was in the lower 80s. It's now at, like I said, about 85, 86% capacity. So that speaks to that second to last bullet there, where the REITs are not getting the return that they want because there's more vacancies because of this pandemic. So take that for what it's worth. It might be an opportunity because the cap rates might, they might come up a little bit. They've been compressed and going in, in a premium mode for 10, 12 years now. But there might be an opportunity for you to point your commercial investor, private equity guys, doctors, lawyers that have some money and want to put it somewhere where it's a safe harbor. And you might get a little bit of an opportunity here because of the vacancies in the big market. Okay. So let's have a little fun. Let's go to the next slide. Suzanne, I think this is one of my favorite slides. I think this is probably the most important slide. I've done thousands of slides when I worked at Intel. And I don't really think there's any other slide that matters, actually. This is the 10,000 year demographic world population. And you can see that spike, that exponential spike that's happened over the last 100 years or so, 5 or 6 generations. So you got to ask yourself, why did this happen? How did this happen? It's a good time to, it's easy to make money when the market's expanding. Markets expand because there's more people to buy stuff. And so it's expanded the last 100 years in an exponential rate. What I think about when I look at this slide is are we going to go to 5 billion? We're at about 7 billion and change right now worldwide. Are we going to go to 5 billion or are we going to go to 10 billion? In the next, what are we going to hit first? Are we going to go back down to 5 billion, which means the party is over and we're going 90 miles an hour and we're heading right for the retaining wall? Or are we going to hit 10 billion next? And then party just continues. Expansion happens. There's more people, there's more everything. There's more people to consume everything, So anyways, something to think about, and we can talk later about this for hours, why and how we got to this point. Some people think it's because of technology or because we found oil or whatever. But what I think about is that barn with that, you open the door and out spill 10,000 mice. There's usually 100 mice in this barn, but there's 10,000 of them because the conditions are just absolutely perfect with enough water, enough sunlight, enough hay in the barn, and so they go exponential. So we've gone exponential for about 100 years now. This should be concerning, by the way. But anyway, so that you really can't talk about healthcare unless you look at this and understand this one, and then juxtapose it with the next slide, which was a little bit of a deeper dive just into the U.S. demographics and then splitting it gender-wise. So Susan, if you can go to the next. I love this slide. This is a fun slide. And whoever put this slide together has a great sense of humor. If you'll notice up in the top, this is the male and the female. And for the argument's sake, let's assume there's just 2 genders in the United States right now. But there's a female in the red, the males are in the white. It goes up by the age, and you'll notice where I put the little arrow. That's where the cliff occurs. That is the end of the baby boom. So let's kind of drill into this and learn what we can learn about this slide. So at that point, which is 9 years from now, it's 2030. There isn't a gradual fall off. There is a cliff in the demographics on both male and female, and that's tens of millions of people that aren't being born. And at that point, that's the end of the 20-year baby boom population. If you're in a baby boom, you were born 1946. That was the start of it. 20 years later, 1964, 1965, that cliff, that party has ended. I know this because I was born right then. I was born on that cliff. I've been living on that cliff my whole life. I always feel like when I show up, the party just ended. So it's kind of how the economy works. And again, this is another one of those big factors that's driving healthcare and will drive it. So the big takeaway from this is 9 years, guys. And then the next slide, I think there's going to be some financial data that proves this out. But the big money is going to go into this. But they also realize that in 9 years, go back to that last slide one sec, Suzanne. In 9 years, this thing ends. This thing has a cliff. And so healthcare, there's a big critical factor that's going to come in 9 years. And that's going to be that we won't need as much healthcare, dramatically less healthcare. Once that number hits an inflection point, there's 10,000 a day, and that's going to continue. And then it's going to go down to 5,000 a day. And then it's going to continue to go down. Now you'll see, this is kind of funny. You'll see the little blip. That's called the divorce finger. That little blip right after my arrow. Some call it the divorce middle finger. But anyway, that's another little spike of kids, maybe second family kids that occurred there. The big money is not going to react to that. They're just going to continue to the party's over, so they're going to continue to pull their money out and try to put it somewhere else. Also the shadows. This is kind of funny too. If you notice up or down in the blue, you'll see the shadow, the darker blue shadow outside of the lighter blue shadow. This is called the male surplus. I love the author of this graph. They called it the male surplus. And so these are the extra males that are out there. The good Lord, nature has done a good job of keeping it about 50-50 gender split. But for some reason, we got more younger males out there. And conversely, you'll see in the upper right, the shadow, the kind of reddish amber shadow, you see a surplus of older females. So ladies, all you single ladies, that little shadow down there, around 30 years old, you see that little peak in that shadow? That is a surplus of young, hunky dudes, right? And I don't know what time Old Town gets kicking on a Thursday night, but I think it's, it used to be around 10 o'clock, that you can go out there and also young guys, any of you young guys here, I understand why you need a purple car. You got to stand out, man. There's a lot of you guys, just hanging around. You might need another tattoo, whatever. But if you really like the older ladies, there's a whole bunch of casinos. The bingo room and the casinos, target rich. So anyway, fun data, interesting data. I've been living this cliff my whole life. I'm actually right at that arrow too. So, that is something that I've become comfortable with. Now you'll notice also one last thing to take away from this, like when you drop a rock in a pond, the first ripple is really big. The second ripple can be as big depending on the topography of the bottom of the pond. And that's what we have, the spike at 30. But then after that, the ripples kind of moderate, kind of wash out to the shoreline. So we're getting back to somewhat of a normal, finite looking demographic after the 30. So hopefully there's be enough enough of the next generation to take care of us. Problem is they're sick too. So we have personally, I have sick people ahead of me that are piling into healthcare, but we also have these young kids that are sick too. So that's why I have Holly House. I think probably why Amy, asked me, because I took care of my mom 10 years ago. I know a little about elder care. I started Holly House. I know a little bit about helping these kids, get back on track, get back in their life, get fully back and productive, so they can pick up an oar and start rowing with all the rest of us. Okay, so the next slide, Suzanne, I think it speaks to the data that I referred to earlier. Take a look at 2018 versus 2017. So 2017, big money went into healthcare, big health at a clip of about $15 billion. But then there's a precipitous drop off in 2018. So it drops for a little more than $4 billion. And then again, that trend continues in 2019. It goes down to 10.3 billion. So this is 11, 10, and 9 years, or I'm sorry, 12, 11, and 10 years to that cliff, that 2030 cliff in the demographics. So I think this speaks to and may confirm, that it's a long-term return if you're going to build a hospital, if you're going to build a 300-bed elder care facility, if you're going to build, sober houses or group homes. You got about 10 years to make your hay on the elder care part of it. Hopefully we can help these kids get better, sooner than that, but who knows? So I think this highlight does talk about the investment criteria, also the investment inertia. It seems to be slowing down. Okay. So next slide, if you will. All right, so this is even a deeper dive. So we're going to drill down into our town. So this is Scottsdale. Bear with me here. I know this is a little bit of an eye chart, guys. On the left, you see the entire town, and on the right, we drill down into the Shea Boulevard corridor. So what you're seeing here are these light blue, these baby blue dots. And in South Scottsdale, there's about 100 group homes of all flavors: elder care, special needs, sober houses. The Shea corridor, there's a concentration of them. The biggest concentration is Scottsdale, by the way. And then up north, you'll have the scattering of the premium, secluded group homes. And so South Scottsdale, a bed costs between $1K and $3K a year. I'm sorry, $1,000 to $3,000 per month. The Shea corridor, you're going to spend between $3,000 and $5,000 a month for that bed. And then up north, it's between $5,000 and $30,000 a month for that bed. And they're trying to, it's about density. It's about trying to have at least 2 per bedroom. One of the tenets in trying to help the kids get sober and as well as make a buck is density. Addiction loves isolation. And so you got to have at least 2 in a room, and it works for the business model because, if you got 2 in a room, then they can keep an eye on each other. If you got 3 in a room, that's even better, especially for the ones that are in their first 90 days in your house. You really want them to join the fraternity, join the sorority. Holly House, by the way, was bought to be a sober living house for 9 females plus 1 female manager. They're going to specialize in video games and fentanyl. So I'm really curious to watch that as a landlord and see how that grows and how they operate that and how they help these kids get sober. So so what's the blue? They call it the buffer. So the care home is the dot in the middle, and the buffer is something that's interesting, and it's changed. So the city of Scottsdale got an onslaught of neighborhoods, HOAs that said we don't like having 4 care homes on one block, one of our streets. So the city of Scottsdale, this is back in 2018, they had a town hall meeting, and they decided that they were going to increase the buffer from 750 feet to 1,200 feet. And that's it. So they grandfathered in the homes that were already there. So that's why you see the overlap on some of the blue buffers. But anybody that's new, anybody that wants to start a new home, they have to abide by the 1,200 foot buffer. So you can't have 1 care home, 1 group home within 1,200 feet of another group home. That's what that means. The reason why they didn't go further is, well, Scottsdale is pro-business, and they also realized that the federal government has classified addiction as a disability. So it is covered and protected by the Disabilities Act, the various act and various amendments to the act over the last 50 years. So they don't want to touch that, and that's probably smart. And so Scottsdale has this many group homes in it for those reasons, and the density, went from 750 to 1,200, and that's how we're rolling, for the last 3 years or so. Other than that, the city just wants you to go to the state if you want to start a group home and go get licensed by the state. And that is extensive. That's where really the kind of the secret sauce is in order to rezone. It's really a rezoning effort, a residential house into a care home business. And they want to make sure that everybody's safe, that you have competent management, you've got all the ADA stuff in there, and that you're not going to, stuff grandma in the closet and call that a bedroom. So, they come out and inspect it and do all of that. And once you satisfy the state, then you're back to the city of Scottsdale. Then fire comes through, make sure the fire is okay, and the code guys come through, make sure that you're up to code, and then you get your license, open for business. So that's what we did with Holly House last October. We got our license, and then we quickly were approached by some real professional operators in town, 3 of them actually, that wanted the house. So we were in a good position there where we decided to pick one of them, and we've got a 3-year lease on it. So that was good. So the Scottsdale situation is probably going to add another 50 to 100 homes in the next 3 years. There's a lot of applications in the process. I've gotten to know the guys at the Arizona Department of Health Services, as well as some of the folks that get these requests at Scottsdale City and Planning. And so, yeah, the demand is going up for these homes. So it's unorganized in that there is a buck to be made. If you do this well, you can make a buck, but it's tough to make the buck in the home by just housing these people. These residents, either young or old or special needs. It's tough to make a buck. If you can make a buck outside of it. So the reason we picked the ones we did is because they have an operation up in the air park, the Scottsdale Air Park. And so their job, once they admit somebody into the house, at 7:30, that kid is up and out of the house, and he's up, and his job is to go to the Scottsdale Air Park, where that's where they teach them how to live. They give them life skills. There's doctors there's pharmacists, there's psychiatrists, psychologists, there's yogis, there's CrossFit in there. And that operation made $2.7 million last year in their 3rd year of operation. So they made about $500,000 in rents, and they made about $2.2 million in professional medical services at their office. So I like that. That seemed like a really smart way to go, because again, just by housing them and feeding them and making them safe and comfortable in a group home, it's tough to make money doing that with all of the expenses, all of the regulations, the labor that you need, to throw at that, at that particular business is the EBITDA is 17%. So anyway, we'll know more there. As I watch these guys grow, they're asking us if we'll build another Holly House for them now. And so, we're looking, I'm looking for that 1,200-foot buffer. I'm working with the city on that. And so we'll probably build another one for these guys. Okay, time check here. We're about out of time here. Suzanne, let's go to one more slide here. Okay, so this is the conclusion slide. It's also the opening slide. So I really don't have much left to say, about this issue of healthcare and how do you make a dollar, other than to say, stay out of healthcare as long as you can, guys. If you have family members that need help and you don't have time to do it, it's going to be $4,000 to $7,000 a month. If you go to the big healthcare like MBK or Lifestream, if you can find a good good group home in Scottsdale, it's going to be maybe $2,000 to $4,000 if there's still a lot of independence, in your loved one. And so that's about it. I will stop there. I didn't think I had a half an hour worth of material, but if there's any questions, again, Amy, thank you for, asking me to, to bring some wisdom and something that I learned. I hope this was helpful for some of you guys, and please,
I took tons of notes. It was extremely interesting. My mom is mid 80s, so we're getting to that point, and I think I'll eventually, she's with my sister, but I think I'll eventually get her back here. So I need to be prepared for a lot of these things. Tom, one of the first questions was, is it possible to get copies of the slides?
Oh, of course, sure, happy to do it. I peeled most of these, as you know, these graphs I didn't make. I peeled them off just, over the last week. So happy to forward the slides to you guys. Sure.
Terrific. If you can, that would be great. And then I think we can distribute to anyone in the group.
Okay.
On your buffer slide that you had, do they distinguish between the different types of care homes? Like, can you have several, let's say, sober homes in a row, or do they want other health, like senior assisted living type homes in between, or is it just anything that falls under that classification? There's that 1,200-foot buffer.
Yeah, good question. So a group home is a group home from the city, and they defer to the state. So the state is the one that will license a home depending on the idiosyncrasies of whether it's going to be special needs or elder care or sober house. But the city does not. They say, it's a 1,200-foot buffer around a group home.
Okay. Okay. Here's a question. Did the recovery homes you mentioned and others accept insurance or access?
So the ones that the company that rented Holly House from us, that's part of their secret sauce. That is, that they take all major healthcare, because again, addiction is considered a disability. So it is picked up by insurance now. Yeah. You do have to have insurance experts to be able to, figure out which line item in the insurance codes to charge.
What was the answer to your quiz earlier?
Well, what are some of the, I'm curious to see, what are some of the.
I saw breathe, I saw drive, I saw talk to strangers, drive a car, sit, brush our teeth. Oh gosh, I hope not, I hope not brush our teeth. That'd be terrible.
Yeah, you guys are smart. So it is drive, but it's something even more specific than that. So the data is, there's tens of thousands of people that get maimed and fatalities occur every year on our roads. So you're absolutely right. It is driving, but specifically it is this. It is within 2 seconds or 4 seconds of going through an intersection. So if you don't remember anything, please, when you go out there, stay the hell out of the intersection for 4 seconds. So over 70% of the fatalities that happen on US roads happen within 2 seconds of the light changing directions. Don't be that first guy. Don't be in front of the line. If the light changes to green for you, you have a privilege to yield. That's what it is. You don't have a privilege to go. Green does not mean go. It means yield. It means look left. It means look right, look left again. And then over 70% of the accidents that include an injury happen within 4 seconds of the light changing. Wow. So again, if you need any evidence of this, just Google traffic accidents 2021. And there are a plethora of YouTube videos of just over the last 6 or 7 weeks, all over the United States, of all this, all this carnage, because we have all these cams. You have these dash cams now. We have rear cams and front cams and side cams. And so there's a ton of video of all this stupid stuff that people do on the roads. And so, yes, it's driving. So all you guys are very smart there. It is driving, but specifically stay out of the intersections for 4 seconds.
One last question. If I had a client who was looking to get licensed for a group home, what would you advise them? Where would they start?
Yeah, good question. And I'll be happy to talk offline, in more detail, but so the first place to start is with, if I would suggest Scottsdale, even though you're going to pay the Scottsdale premium, I would suggest Scottsdale because it will then attract the out-of-towners. Everybody knows Scottsdale in France, but no one's ever heard of Gilbert. So Scottsdale still has the panache, it still has the, the moniker of the title. and people want to get sober in Scottsdale. So we decided to pay that premium. Plus, it's also much more pro-business, much more pro-tourism, which there's some overlap there. So we started the city planning and zoning. You go to them. You also want to go to the state, Arizona Department of Health Services. Specifically, you want to pull up Chapter 2 and Chapter 9 of the Arizona Department Health Services guidelines for home care. Chapter 2 and Chapter 9 will give you the criteria. And then there's a third entity I would suggest you start with, which is Arizona Recovery House Association, or known as AZRA, AZRHA, Arizona Recovery House Association. And they were established by the Arizona Department of Health Services in 2008, 12, 13 years ago, to help with people and questions just like this. How do I get this started? And so that association is strong, and they are accredited. By the way, Holly House was inspected. We had the inspection from the state health services and passed that inspection, last October. But then when we rented it to the other, to this entity, the Sober House company, AZRA came out and recertified it, and the state took that as good enough, so they didn't have to come and take a second trip. So that's how accredited they are with the state. That's how close they are with the state. So AZRA, Arizona Department of Health Services, and Scottsdale Planning and Zoning. Those would be the three that I would call and start and just start asking questions.
Great, thank you so much. Let me just double check and see if there's any other ones in there. Oh, Jen adds some additional information. She's on the board of Arizona Assisted Living Home Association. There's a conference March 3rd and 4th. So that would be great to check into that too, if anyone has further interest on our topic today. If there's no other questions, then thank you, Tom. I appreciate you. Everybody appreciates hearing about the update and everything. Rebecca, do you have anything to, any announcements, any SAAR announcements?
I'm gonna bow to Suzanne. She probably has some announcements. I know hopefully everyone has looked into the PPP loans. I know there have been some freezing of it recently. You might have heard in the news, but that's for if you have 20 employees or less, that will not affect you. So please get that information. We had a great happy hour last week. It was last week where we had a great speaker on how to apply for PPP loans. And so we just want to make sure that everybody knows that that's in existence right now. The other thing I would mention too is the affordable healthcare availability has opened up for enrollment. There's a ton of information on NAR's website. So if you're out there and uninsured, this is a great opportunity to take advantage of that with that extension of the enrollment period. So I don't know, what else did you have, Suzanne?
We just have some of our future dates to take note of for our commercial forum. So keep your calendars penciled in and tune in. We have some additional great speakers. For March, we have Patrick McQueen, who's going to be coming in and talking about our COVID legal issues for commercial real estate. So you can check that out. And the commercial events, just to have you be aware of those. NAR has a commercial real estate forecast summit that's going to be on March 10th. It's a virtual event. If you're a realtor member, you're eligible to attend that. There's no charge for it. We also have the NAR commercial is putting on the C5 Summit. This is going to be a live event. It's still planned as live in New York from September 27th through the 29th. Registration should be opening up at the end of March for this event. And then we have our SAAR Commercial Summit, which will be held October 15th. So pencil that in. And just a reminder, if you're going to be sending in any of your touts that you want to have projected up onto the screen for our next upcoming forums, please email your touts into commercial@scottsdalerealtors.org. And we will be happy to collect those for you. I see Laura raising her hand there.
Do you have a slide for the classes?
I don't have a
Okay.
slide for the
So I
classes.
just wanted to stick my big nose in and mention that our first free CE class, first free commercial CE class is coming up March 25th with Pat Sheehan. That class will be writing the AAR, Commercial Real Estate Purchase Contract. So that class will be done by Zoom, and Pat tells me that's the last one this year he'll do on Zoom. And we're very grateful to Helena for sponsoring the class, but we'll be doing that again on March 25th from 9 to 12. The information, the registration information is in our system, so feel free to check it out.
Perfect. Sabrina, you have a question?
Yes, Suzanne, may I talk about the economic forecast for CCIM?
Sure.
Okay, just a reminder that is March the 26th. And so if anyone's interested, let me know and I'll get the information to them or look on CCIM local chapter. Thank you. And it is virtual.
Thanks, Sabrina. And just a reminder for anyone, if you're interested in becoming a subscriber for Catalyst and taking advantage of a discount, if you're already a SAAR Realtor member, you can take advantage of that discount. If you do not happen to be a SAAR member, you can apply for our SAAR commercial subscriber program. And that will get you eligible for that significant discount to be able to access Catalyst, as well as get you some additional benefits through SAAR. That Catalyst is one of the commercial research platforms that you're able to take advantage of. They have recently been bought out by Moody's Analytics, which is going to be expanding their platform. There's been a lot of changes going on recently in the MLS and data and on the commercial side with takeovers and mergers. So this was an interesting one to see, but we have a lot of good things that looks like it's coming out from Catalyst, that they're building and boosting the Catalyst platform thanks to Moody's investment. And one last thing is we want to thank Helena again for being our sponsor for the commercial forum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last
We
words,
appreciate you.
Helena?
Helena, do you want to say anything about your firm?
Oh, just American Title Service Agency is one of the largest independently owned title and escrow agencies in Maricopa County. We have many, many, many new tools that are coming up to help you search for properties, look for potential buyers or sellers of commercial real estate. So please give us a call and we welcome an opportunity to meet with you.
Terrific.
And thanks for having us again. We love being here and participating.
Wonderful. If we don't have anything else, then we can go ahead and close the meeting for this month. And I'll look forward to seeing you all on March 24th. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you,
Welcome, Amy.
Tom.
Thank you, Tom. That was wonderful. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much for attending, everyone.